In this video, we will be tasting and talking about batch 105 of the Eco Cha Tea Club, an award-winning Alishan High Mountain Oolong tea from Taiwan. Batch 105 of the Eco Cha Tea Club is an award-winning Alishan High Mountain Oolong tea from Taiwan, specifically from the Meishan Township in Jiayi County. Our friend, who we often source our Alishan High Mountain Oolong and Alishan High Mountain Jin Xuan Oolong, a hybrid strain commonly known as milk oolong. His family is the most highly in demand for competition tea that is used to enter into the Lugu Farmers Association, by far the largest oolong tea competition in Taiwan and in the world. They're very skilled tea producers, and the son who we work with has been entering into his local competitions, both Meishan and Alishan, just to develop his practice at roasting, basically. He chooses a batch of tea that he finds to have sufficient oxidation. If you're going to do any roasting, the leaves cannot be too green or too lightly oxidized. So that's a very important assessment. What raw material, so to speak, basically they call it mao ta, or the tea that comes straight out of the factory, which is cured completely. But for competition, what they will do subsequently is to destem the tea, remove a lot of the stem material, and any older, more mature leaves. They can do that by scanning it, I believe, with infrared. They can do a color scanning, and part of the assessment in the competition is the uniformity in the appearance of the dried leaves as well as the brewed leaves. So our friend chose one of the batches of tea that was produced that he offers to his customers, and he roasted it to what he thought would be the quality standard of the Alishan competition and entered it. And he received an award, but he wasn't very satisfied with the award. Basically, there's 4 levels, and he got the 4th level, which still puts him in well within the top 40%. I think it's closer to the top 1/3 of all entries, which is still pretty good, you know. And a lot of that has to do with luck. It's not just how good or not good your tea is. It's how the tea judges assess it at a given moment or a given day. And there's many, many factors, as you can imagine, that go into that. So he was considering, we were up there sourcing our spring tea and then summer harvest, and I asked him if he had any competition grade tea, either in the competition award-winning packaging or not. Maybe he had a batch that he decided not to enter, which we have sourced before and shared with the tea club. And he said, well, I do have a Youliang Jiang, which is this excellence award. Youliang, I think, translated as excellent. And he said, I'm considering opening all they're packaged in 1 Qing, which is 600 gram units, 2 packets of tea, 300 grams each, opening all that up and then putting it aside until next competition and probably giving it a very light touch-up roast and entering it again, because I think it's a good batch of tea, or he thought the quality was quite good. And in the end, his final comment on this batch is that he thinks that he chose a batch with oxidation that's a little too high for this competition standard, which makes sense because his family is making tea for the Lugu Farmers Association often, and that needs a higher oxidation level for a more substantial roasting to make Dongding Oolong tea. We're starting with a standard High Mountain Oolong, which is very lightly oxidized, green, fragrant, floral and herbal, and very vibrant in its fresh character and quality. If you oxidize it more, it loses a lot of that high note aromatic and brings it down into a sweeter, more substantial flavor profile. And then when you roast that, if it's oxidized sufficiently and you roast it, you get a really nice, still quite fresh. I mean, it's on the scale, I would put this at less than 15% oxidation, and really that's just a relative scale. But it's more than High Mountain Oolong tea and is significantly less than Dongding Oolong tea. So you get this really nice, you still get fresh and floral notes often, along with sweet and pastry and savory notes. Okay, I really need a sip now, my mouth is watering. I did 5 brews here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 160 milliliter pot. I used a 1:16 ratio, so it's 10 grams of tea. I did 9.5 because I really wanted to not over brew it. And I went with 70 seconds on the first brew to let those leaves fully get hydrated and open up. 50 seconds on the second brew, so I dropped it down 20 seconds between the first and second brews. Up to 1 minute on the third brew, 60 seconds. So we have 70, 50, 60 seconds on the third brew, 70 seconds on the fourth brew, and 80 seconds on the fifth brew. Let's see what we got. Cooled down to room temperature now. If I had to only use 2, I need 2, I can't do it in 1. Adjectives to describe this flavor, I would say nutty and floral. It's got this sweet base, a little bit of a kind of viscous, oily texture, and then definitely bright notes. There's just enough bitter base to this flavor profile to kind of bring everything alive and make it vibrant. Let's try the second brew here. Noticeably more substantial, the second brew, even though I did 70 seconds on the first one and 50. It really starts, coming through on the second brew. I want to go back just to check that. Yeah, a little bit thinner, lighter, more nose and complex, or at least I wouldn't say more, but a significant amount of complexity in the nose. Second brew, thicker mouthfeel, more sweet notes, turning into savory. I would say floral on the first, more savory notes on the second, savory pastry notes third. I think the fundamental thing that I appreciate with this quality standard that they have established is that they're taking it 1 or 2 steps away from that fresh green floral Malta, the original flavor of High Mountain tea, and working it with a little bit of finesse, a little more oxidation in the processing of the leaves, and then a light baking or roasting. So it mellows it out, and it kind of substantiates and broadens the profile. You could say it's less complex, but I think it's just a different complex. It's not that it's a trade-off, not a loss in my perception. So there's no lack of complexity here. So getting back to our friend's comment, from whom we sourced this tea, when he said that he thinks it was just a little too oxidized, my ears perked up because I'm a fan of that. And a little more oxidation with there's just the right roasting. I'm getting chills, I'm just a weirdo. Really, I don't know, it can hit the mark, like oxidation is what a big part of the skill set in making oolong tea. The lighter the oxidation, the more safe you are, the safer the zone of basically hitting the mark of what you want to make. So really green High Mountain Oolong tea is made for a reason, and one of the reasons is that it's made in higher volumes, and they want shorter steps. Each stage of it is done for shorter amounts of time, the wilting and dehydrating process. So there's less room for error, basically. And the more you push the leaves and in their wilting and dehydrating in preparation for oxidation, the wider room for error there is. So that's part of the appreciation for a more significantly oxidized tea that has some post-production work with it too, namely roasting. Okay, I didn't comment on the fourth. I definitely noticed a difference between the fourth and the fifth. Third and fourth are quite similar. It's a light roast. It really, I mean, if you don't hear anyone telling you it's lightly roasted, you may not think roasted at all. It's more like a nutty, fresh, toasted grains might be closer to that roasted aspect. And not as intense as like cashews or pistachios or walnuts, more like a toasted seed maybe used for spices. Yeah, the fifth, so that's 80 seconds. I think that's probably as much as you want to go. You can brew it for as long as you want by the fifth brew. It's not really going to overly brew. But I can kind of get this sense that it's not going to get much stronger in concentration, and the longer you brew it, the kind of flatter it will become in its complexity. So I would just kind of keep it within the 1.5 minute range if you're going to continue brewing for more successive brews. I just thought graham for the first time here, graham cracker, because it has that light toasty wheat, you know, that toasted grain thing. I find it extremely satisfying, that light roast character with a significantly, but still on the lighter end of oxidation. I have appreciated these farmers associations for deciding on this quality standard to differentiate it from the fresh high mountain oolong tea, which is still the standard for Renai, which is the Alishan tea growing region, including Hehuanshan. So there's a lot of tea still, the above 1,000 meter elevation produce is largely made into an unroasted, lightly oxidized high mountain tea. And the Alishan region includes a lot of tea that is grown at around 1,000 or even lower than 1,000 meters. If it's lower than 1,000 meters, most of the farms have cultivated Jin Xuan because that's the ideal climate for Jin Xuan in my understanding and perception. And anything above 1,100 is mostly, or most likely to be Qing Oolong, of which this is. So there we have it. Spring 2024, Alishan Farmers Association Competition Award-winning tea. We chose it because we know that this producer is hot stuff. And any tea that they make is going to be of decent quality at the very least, and could be the best quality available. I'm going to taste the mixed of all 5 brews here. It's always my favorite. It's still warm, that's one thing. It has a little bit, just warm, not much higher than room temperature. But you get everything that's offered in the individual brews in one sip. Doing this, that's the advantage of being a solo brewer, is that you get this large glass or mug of tea to enjoy for, you know, the next hour or several throughout the day. When you brew a gongfu style, you can taste each brew and have that experience of a freshly brewed, still hot cup of tea. And then you have the second round of more deliciousness. Oh, I forgot to examine the leaves here. This is a prime example of what competition tea looks like. And I didn't mention one thing, which is that I chose 1:16 ratio, which is a little bit less than 1:15 ratio, which is our standard high mountain tea recommendation to start with. That's because these leaves have been groomed of a lot of stem material and any, like I said, overly mature leaves. So it's the cream of the crop, which makes it more concentrated. So you can use less leaf to water and get that full, rich flavor. So that's something to remember, and you don't want to over brew it because that'll just make it too concentrated and you lose complexity. It's really uniform in color and the leaves look the same size. Very pretty batch of tea. There we have it. Spring 2024 award-winning Alishan High Mountain Oolong tea coming at you. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.